going on, DFS Army? It's Craig Bennett, aka Cash Cake, here for another breakdown on Thanksgiving slate. And this time we're going to do DraftKings. I did FanDuel this morning. So if you want to check out FanDuel specific breakdown, first look on the Thanksgiving Day slate, then check out the video I did this morning on this channel. And please hit that subscribe button, hit a thumbs up. Let me know you want me to continue to do these videos. And if you're not a part of DFS Army, then go to dfsarmy.com, use promo code CashCake, and save yourself 20%. We're going to have a full breakdown for this slate. I'm going to use our optimizer, the Domination Station, to go through the slate today. Again, using DraftKings prices for here. First off, though, we'll go through the injuries again in case you did not watch the FanDuel specific video I did this morning. And we got some big ones that'll dictate this slate a lot. So the first one, Kenny Golladay. Again, I expect him to play, but if you don't, then again, it's a big bump to Marvin Jones. We still have Amendola as well. He's questionable. So if he's out, again, Marvin Jones, Hall, those guys will be big. So we really got to make sure that he plays. But I expect Kenny Golladay to play. David Johnson is still out, so we're still going to see a bunch of Duke Johnson. I've been on the fade bandwagon on that guy. He just never showed to get it done, but it's a great matchup against Detroit. So on a 3-game slate, you're probably going to want some of them, but I actually don't mind the fade. DeAndre Swift is the massive one because if he plays, I want all the DeAndre Swift I can get. If he's out, then of course we have Adrian Peterson that we have to look at, and then Kerryon Johnson, which I like more on DraftKings than Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson's more of a FanDuel play for me. And then the one we do know on the Baltimore side of the running game, J.K. Dobbins is out, COVID-19 protocol. Same with Mark Ingram. So it's going to be Gus the Bus, man. Gus Edwards is going to be the primary running back on this team. And then we're going to have Justice Hill as the backup. So some decent prices on those guys. Randall Cobb is doubtful for Houston. So if he were sit, which I expect him to do, it's just more looks for Cooks and Fuller. And then if Stills is active, you could look at him or QT. QT, did see some targets last game, so he's cheap and a guy we can look at. Juju Smith-Schuster, he is questionable. It's a tough matchup against Baltimore regardless, but if he is out, we've seen Deontay Johnson just get target after target after target. It just gets more looks for him and Claypool. And then we could see Washington slide into that third wide receiver role for Pittsburgh. Other than that, we got Vance McDonald questionable. All these other guys don't change the slate too much. Dante Inman's questionable. If he doesn't play again, it's more looks for guys like Steven Sims, Cam Sims, stuff like that. So the big ones, though, is Golladay, Swift on the Detroit side. It's the first game of the slate, which helps a ton because it dictates everything. And one thing you have to love about Turkey Day is you can watch one game at a time and have all 3 back-to-back. So absolutely one of the best days of NFL on the season. So with that, let's just dive right into this real quick. Again, DraftKings here in our Domination Station, just kind of go through things. First game on the slate, again, we have Houston at Detroit, 51-point total, with Houston favored by 3. Let's just dive right into the quarterbacks. I'll go position by position here. Now we look at Deshaun Watson, 7,400. Absolute, just fantastic matchup. When you see on this slate, there's not a lot of high-priced guys, so it's very easy to fit whoever you want to. And with that being the case, there is you can leave salary on the slate, because if Deshaun Watson isn't the highest scoring quarterback and maybe it's a Stafford or maybe it's a Dalton or something like that, you don't be afraid to leave money on this slate, on a 3-game slate like this. I think if some things happen, the skill position guys at running back and wide receiver are just not priced up, and you can basically fit whoever you want to. It's very easy to fit into Deshaun Watson. Again, since Bill O'Brien got fired, they've been extremely good. They've been passing the ball a ton. They're top 5 in league in neutral pass situations. So love Deshaun Watson, 7,400 on DraftKings. Lamar Jackson at 6,800. Again, they don't have the top 2 running backs. He could run a little bit more, but I expect Pittsburgh to, spy him, keep him under bay. They played against each other back in, was it 4 weeks ago? Back on, November 1st. Didn't do that well. 13 for 28, only 46% completion rate. That ain't gonna get done. Ran the ball 16 times for 65 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns though, passing in the red zone. So again, he only had 18 total DraftKings points against Pittsburgh here, and he just hasn't looked good this year. I would much rather pay up $600 more for Deshaun Watson all day in a better game environment. So love that Deshaun Watson play. Again, Ben Roethlisberger, being 6,600 on DraftKings. Again, it's another one of those things. Baltimore's a good defense. Even though that they throw the ball a ton, he put up 17 or 15 DraftKings points in the same game back on November 1st. Completed 21 of 32, 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. Big Ben's a statue back there, so he's not going to get the ball and run. So you're not going to get too much out of him. So it's one of those things where, I would just, to get overweight on some guys, I'm just going to go extremely heavy in Deshaun Watson. I know he's going to be chalk, but I want all the Deshaun Watson I can get. And then I'll take some stabs at Stafford, Dalton, and Smith down here. Stafford's 5,800. I like him, especially because his weapons back and Swift and Galladay. If Galladay comes back, I like Stafford even more in that game environment. And then down at Dalton's 5,600 and Alex Smith's is 5,400. The Cowboys look pretty decent against Minnesota. With Dalton behind there, at least they have some of a capable quarterback, which does help. He's got way more weapons than Washington does. So I don't mind taking a few shots of these guys down here if you're doing MME, but in cash games, it's going to be Deshaun Watson all day long. Lock him in. Let's move over to the running back position here. Ezekiel Elliott, 6,800. Again, it's very easy to fit these guys in. Washington has a really good, front seven. So I'm not super excited to use Elliott, but he was getting the workload there. So, I don't mind playing him in cash games at that price. It's way too cheap. Again, DeAndre Swift is the guy that I'm going to hit the lock button on, even though Patricia likes to screw us. If he's healthy and we know he's going to go, he can't get hardly a better matchup against Houston. He looked fantastic 2 games ago when Patricia says that he was going to be the starting running back and he was going to get the carries, and he actually did. And so if we figure that's going to happen again, that's where we're going to go. Again, James Conner, 6,200. Antonio Gibson, 6K. I just prefer Swift at 6,500. Antonio Gibson's more of a FanDuel play because we want those touchdowns, and he's a red zone guy. But on this Washington side, I would much rather come down 5,100 to J.D. McKissic. He gets a ton of work in the passing game, especially if we think that Dallas is going to be up early here. It's at home for Dallas. They can still win the division because that NFC East is so pathetic. And Washington was up against Cincinnati last week, so they didn't need to pass that much. So they didn't need a whole lot of McKissic. And McKissic gets a ton of work in the passing game with Alex Smith back there. Now, he only saw 4 targets last game, 3 for 26, and that's why we like DraftKings for the full PPR. But if we think that the game script is going to be playing from behind, then we're going to want McKissic over Gibson, and I believe that's going to be the case. So I would just take all my Gibson love on FanDuel and all McKissic on DraftKings. He's 5,100. He saw 15 targets 2 games ago against the Lions, 14 targets against the Giants back on November 8th. Turn that 9 to 65, 743. Right there is 11.3 and 15.5 DraftKings points, just specifically on receiving. So you have to love that price on him if we expect the game flow to go like that. Duke Johnson, 5,700, is probably going to be popular because Detroit is last in the league and their rush defense is horrendous. So if you were going to play Duke Johnson on any slate, it would be this slate. I've been off him the first 2. On a 3-game slate, you have to have some of them. He's probably going to be pretty chalky. I would rather come down to McKissic just to kind of get off him a little bit. But he's probably going to be very popular on this slate. You have to consider him. Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. Again, Kerryon Johnson's more the pass-catching back. If Swift was out, I would rather have some Kerryon Johnson on DraftKings, and Peterson's more of a FanDuel play, so I'd rather have no Peterson. Even though it's a great matchup, we really have to figure out what's going on here. If Swift does play, I really don't want any of Peterson, and I would have just a tad bit of Kerryon Johnson. But the chalk's going to be right underneath him. Gus Edwards at 4K, lead back. I know it's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh, but he's going to get all the carries. They run extremely heavy on this team. So it's one of those things that I think you're just going to, in cash games, probably eat that chalk. And in tournaments, I don't mind going down here to Justice Hill. 4K, same price, easily just to fit him in a tournament lineup. Maybe they start using him a little bit more. He gets there over Edwards. But again, Edwards is going to be extremely chalky. And that's really all I look down here. I don't really want much of Tony Pollard at 4K unless you think that game kind of gets out of hand or, he can bust one off. Snell's more of a FanDuel play. They use him in the red zone but doesn't do much else. And then Barber, these guys down here, I don't want anything. So, again, my favorite plays, you could easily fit in Elliott and Swift up here, kind of lower on Gibson and Connor on the DraftKings side. Duke Johnson, again, is in play, even though don't really like that guy. And then all these other things, Edwards going to be chalk. And then the Lions backs, we just need to know what's going on with Swift. But again, first game, we'll know what's going on. Let's slide on over here to wide receiver position on DraftKings. F1 Terry McLaurin, 7K. I don't think you need to go here in cash games at all at that price, even though it's a great matchup. I have no problem playing him. Again, you can easily play him. But I think on this slate, if Juju doesn't go, Deontay Johnson, 6,200, getting massive target volume. Saw a ton of targets last game. It's a tough matchup, but he still saw 16 targets, 12 receptions, 111 last game against Jacksonville on Sunday. In the same matchup, though, didn't do that great. Saw 3 targets, 1 reception, 6 yards. But if Juju's out, he's seen double-digit targets the last 3 games. Maybe there's some recency bias where people will get on him. And cash, I think you play him. I think Claypool is a fantastic pivot to Deontay Johnson. He is actually only 6,100. So Deontay Johnson's probably going to have 2 to 3x his ownership, I would assume. And with that, Chase Claypool put up 9 targets, 5 receptions, 42 yards, and a touchdown in the same matchup with 1 target in the end zone. In the red zone where he caught for a touchdown. So I really like the Claypool pivot off of Deontay Johnson and GPPs for that. Again, Kenny Golladay down here at 6K. If he plays, love some Kenny Golladay. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5,900. Just a tournament play. If he does end up playing, I would much rather go to Golladay. And then all these Cowboys wide receivers are extremely cheap. CeeDee Lamb, 5,400. Amari Cooper, 5,700. I think it's going to be a little hard to run against that front 7 for Washington. So I would rather kind of go down away from Zeke maybe in tournaments and then go look at a Cooper or Lamb on the passing side here to pair him up with your old red rifle Andy Dalton. Marvin Jones, again, 5,500. We're still waiting for that massive 40 burger, but I don't know exactly when it'll come. So you need a piece of him. And if Galladay's back, it should help him open up some targets. Down here again, Brandon Cooks, way too cheap, 5,300. Cash play for sure, especially looking at, Cobb probably going to be out. He's doubtful. So you have to love that price tag at 5,300. He's been really good since Bill O'Brien got fired. And I think this is just a great matchup for him. No problem there. Marquise Brown, I talked this a little bit on FanDuel. Man, he has been bad. Lamar Jackson's a lot to do with it. It sucks to see. I would much rather go down to Willie Snead. I think all the hype gets on Brown, because of the name, and he's a more talented wide receiver. But Brown just can't hit him down the field, man. He's just horrible. He gets those guys that are, closer to the line, slants, hitting the tight end, up the seam or out. So I would rather have way more Willie Snead than I would Marquise Johnson here. Marquise Brown. Willie Snead, which is surprising when I looked at this, he had – where did he have the same matchup, which I looked at and I was like pretty shocked what he put up. In this same matchup back against Pittsburgh on November 1st. 7 targets, put 5 for 106. The targets are not bad for a guy at this price range. Got 7 targets against Tennessee, 7 targets against the Patriots, only 4 against the Colts, but that's a hard matchup. And then we had 7 against the Steelers. So again, I think with Lamar Jackson struggling throwing the ball down the field, he's looking for Snead a little bit more. So I love that price tag on him. Marvin Hall, like I said, if Golladay plays, I probably don't want too much of Hall. Even if Amendola is out, maybe you throw a little bit in there of him. But it really depends on Golladay. I'd want way more Golladay if Golladay is playing. Des Bryant down here, 3,600. You can have a look at Gallup tournament options as well. Same with Kiki QT here, because we're probably going to get him playing some of that third wide receiver role, especially if we get Stills out as well of Cobb. So we got to keep an eye on that. And then all these Washington receivers are really cheap. Inman should be out, so we should look at Cam Sims, Steve Sims Jr., 3,300 and 3,200. They should be playing from behind. Those are nice guys you can slide in. And this is what I mean. You don't have to spend all your salaries. If one of these guys does something decent and one of those guys fails up top, it's very easy to get into Deshaun Watson. So any of these guys are in play. Again, Cephas is only in play if Golladay sits. James Washington, love this $3K price tag on him. If Juju sits, he'll be that third wide receiver option, and he's a deep play threat. One bomb would pay off this price tag, so you have to have some Washington. And then all these other guys down here, again, Stills, if he does play 3K, he would be that third wide receiver option. I don't really have too much love down here for Boykin or Duvernay, Agnew, Foster, McLeod, none of these guys down here. So that's really all I would look at. Again, down this 3K range, it's basically James Washington, Kenny Stills, but James Washington, love the upside for that play. Let's move on to the tight end position over here on DraftKings and look at the pricing. Mark Andrews, 5,200. Again, like I said, there's not a lot of spend ups. It's really easy to look at these guys and just play basically whoever you want to play. Again, I think he's definitely going to be the chalk here because it's easy to get up to him. TJ Hawkinson, if we get Golladay out, the targets are going to be there for him. I think he's in play regardless of what's going to happen, especially if this game shoots out. It's the highest over-under at 51. You're going to want pieces of this game. They're definitely going to be the 2 chalk pieces. If Juju sits, we get Eric Ebron here at 4,100. It's an extremely cheap price tag on him. You have to like the targets that he's been getting lately. Saw 7 against Jacksonville on Sunday, went 436 with a touchdown. 6 targets against the Bengals, then saw 6 against Dallas. And then in this same game on November 1st, he saw 5 targets, put up 4 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown. So he's had 3 touchdowns in those last 4 games. And for 4,100, man, I think I'd get off some of the other chalk and Andrews and Hawkinson and get some Ebron in your life. Kind of love this range right here at tight end. I like all these guys. Ebron, Dalton Schultz, again, 3,800, a guy I don't mind playing at all. The targets have been, up with Red Rifle there. Saw 6 targets against Minnesota last game, put up 4 receptions, 25 yards and a touchdown. Pittsburgh, same, 7 targets, 4 for 48. And then against the Eagles 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, 6 receptions for 53 on 8 targets. So he's getting a lot of love there. I think the Dalton, loves the tight ends. He's got a lot of weapons though. So kind of moving the ball around. Looking at Logan Thomas, I prefer Schultz and Akins here, but I don't mind Thomas at 3,500. Again, if they're going to be playing from behind, targets, he hasn't been doing a ton with them, but saw 5 targets, 2 for 6 yards. Against Detroit, he saw 6 targets, 4 for 66. So out of the 3, he's probably the one I don't like the most in this 3K range. And then Akins at 2,900, just way too cheap for him, especially up against Detroit. Had 6 targets last game against the Patriots, put up 5 for 83 yards, which was a season high for him. Again, it's just we know that that Cobb is doubtful, and that just kind of boosts the targets have to go somewhere, and they can spread the ball around. So at 2,900, you got to put him in your lineup. And then Darren Fells, 2,700. Akins is the guy I want. Fells is more of a blocking guy. So it's basically Akins. If I had to rank these guys, your chalk guys are going to be Andrews or Hawkinson. I probably want one of those guys in cash, probably Andrews. And then I love Ebron and Schultz in tournaments. and then Akins, and then Thomas would be the last guy. I don't really want too much down here on these guys. Let's just slide on to defense here. And in defense, again, I mentioned this in the FanDuel video. If you want to watch the FanDuel specific video I did this morning, check out the channel and watch that specifically. But here on DraftKings, don't forget, if you're building lineups in the domination station, and again, if you're not a member of DFS Army, head on over there, dfsarmy.com, use promo code CashCake, save yourself 20% off. Kind of have cheat sheets up here. Use all the tools that we have. We have some really slick tools in the research lab. You can check out targets, all kinds of tools you can get, and you get all sports. Like I said, we've got college basketball that's coming up tomorrow. We're going to do a video, have cheat sheets for that. College football on Thursday and Friday, going to do some videos, and we have cheat sheets for those. You get everything over here. But don't forget, on defenses, it's okay to play somebody against your defense. Steelers at 4,200. I have no problem playing there. Lamar's throwing the ball all over the place, get a few sacks, get a few interceptions, maybe take one in the house. But then we have maybe a cheap guy like Snead catches enough balls that's in the lineup, something like that. Same with Washington, they get to Dalton, sack him a few times, maybe take one to the house. But then we have maybe Cooper or maybe Zeke is in the nut lineup. So don't forget to do that, and we can set that over here at Domination Station at DFS Army and throw that in there. But yeah, it's going to be a fun slate. I'm going to be around all day on Turkey Day answering questions in our VIP chat. Definitely have a lot of content out. Head on over and try us out. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up and let me know that you want me to keep knocking out these videos. And I appreciate each and every one of you watching this. And I will see you over at DFS Army at the VIP chat. Deuces.